That evening began like any big New York party, glasses clinking, cameras flashing, and everyone dressed to the nines. Jim Jones had booked a swanky rooftop spot in downtown Manhattan and invited only close friends: Cameron, Fat Joe, Remy Ma, Fivio Foreign, Lil J. It was more than a birthday toast. It was Jim's way of showing he still mattered. But beneath the glitter, something felt off. Jim's son, Putty, slipped in after midnight, wearing a plain black hoodie and jeans. He didn't greet anyone. He didn't smile. He drifted toward the bar, alone. A few guests noticed, but no one dared interrupt. After all, it was Jim's big night. At exactly 12:01, the music cut out. A shout rang out near the bar. Chairs scraped. Suddenly, Putty collapsed, blood pooling around him. Cameron yanked out his phone. Remy froze, hand to her mouth. Jim shoved through the crowd, panic on his face. "Call 911!" he screamed, cradling his son's head. Paramedics sped up the fire escape stairs as Jim pleaded, "Stay with me, son. Please don't go." Before an ambulance could arrive, someone posted a shaky clip online. Jim Jones's kid shot at birthday party. Pray for him. Within minutes, TMZ, Shade Room, and every blog had it. But no one knew who fired that bullet, or why, or how a gun got past security. On the rooftop, friends murmured that this wasn't a random accident. It had been planned. Jim and Cameron exchanged glances. "That wasn't luck," Cameron said softly. "Somebody wanted him dead." But Jim only stared at the flashing lights of the departing ambulance, his hoodie soaked in his son's blood. Outside, sirens wailed. Jim climbed into a waiting black Escalade, the driver's eyes glued to the road. His bodyguard sat up front, rigid as a statue. All around them, Manhattan blurred by, the bright signs, the yellow cabs, the late-night delivery vans. But inside the SUV, no one spoke. Jim just stared at his hands, stained red. At the hospital, photographers pressed in, shouting questions. One tried aiming a mic at Jim's face. His guard swiped it away with a single punch. In the waiting room, the mood was grim. A surgeon stepped out and announced, "We stopped the bleeding, but he's still critical. The next day is everything." Jim nodded, too hollow to talk. Minutes later, Chrissy, Putty's mother, ran into the hallway. Her eyes were red, her breath ragged. She slapped Jim across the face without warning. "You promised me he'd be safe," she hissed. "He's just a kid." Jim's jaw tightened. "I didn't see it coming," he whispered. Chrissy spun and stormed off. Then a security cam clip popped up online, showing a man disguised as a caterer pushing a food cart. He paused, reached under the tray, and pulled out a weapon. The screen cut before the shot, but everyone knew what had happened. Someone on the inside had helped create this nightmare. Jim's phone buzzed again. A blocked number. "You should have stayed in your lane, Jimmy. This is only the start." The voice was icy and low. Jim's hand shook so badly he dropped the phone. Whoever made that call wasn't finished. By dawn, social media was flooded with rumors. Was this gang-related? A revenge hit? A power play? Harlem's old guard posted cryptic warnings. "Be careful what you build. You might become the target." Yet still, no answers. Inside the hospital chapel, Jim sat alone. He hadn't slept since the rooftop. His suit was wrinkled, his face stubbled. Cameron slipped in, placed a hand on his shoulder. Neither spoke. Out on the street, fan pages ran. Pray for Putty campaigns. Instagram was awash with the rooftop's skyline and flashing lights. But for Jim Jones, the world had shrunk to a single empty bed in a fluorescent hospital room, and the gunman who hadn't finished his job. This was no longer a birthday memory. It was the moment everything changed. Inside the ICU, Putty lay unconscious, hooked to machines that beeped like a ticking clock. Jim stood at the glass wall, his fists tight. Tone slipped up beside him. Want me to find out who did this? Tone asked. Jim nodded fiercely. I need every detail. Who snuck that snake into my party? What crew he's with? Everything. Tone vanished into the night. Meanwhile, headlines exploded. Jim Jones's son shot at birthday party. Gang retaliation suspected. Shooter posed as caterer. In Harlem, folks weren't just talking. They were picking sides. 2 days later, Putty still hadn't woken. Jim slept on a stiff hallway chair, barely eating. Every update from the doctors felt too small, too late. Behind the scenes, Tone worked non-stop. Before dawn on day 3, he returned with red-rimmed eyes. I found him, Tone said. Not the shooter, but the guy who let him in. Jim stared. Tone shook his head. It was J. Red. Jim blinked, his longtime event planner. Red sold a fake ID, listed the shooter as cleanup crew. He made $5,000 to get him past security. Jim's blood ran cold. I want to see him, he said. You ready? Tone hesitated. I need to, Jim replied. 2 hours later, they reached J. Red's brownstone in Brooklyn. Jim stepped out alone. No bodyguards, just determination. Red opened the door, bleary-eyed. Yo, Jim! Jim struck him before any warning, a single punch that sent Red sprawling. Jim slammed the door and knelt, voice low. You set up my son. Red pressed a hand to his jaw. No, man. I swear I didn't know he'd shoot. They threatened my brother in Rikers. I had to help, or he'd get killed too. Jim's eyes burned. You used my party to protect your own? You let my child become a target. Red's shoulders sagged. I never wanted this, just the threat to my family. Jim rose slowly, fury mixed with grief. He left Red on the floor and headed back to the hospital. Inside, a nurse stopped him, voice trembling. He's awake, asking for you. Jim froze, then rushed in. Putty lay pale but breathing. At the first sight of his dad, he gave a weak smile. Dad, you skipped my toast. Jim managed a shaky laugh as he took Putty's hand. I got you, he said softly. We'll figure this out together. But Putty shook his head. Listen, I heard him. He said, this is for BG. Jim's face went ashen. BG? Putty nodded. They shot me for revenge. BG was killed years ago. Jim clenched his jaw, mind racing. A forgotten feud. A buried secret, now shooting through the heart of his family. He vowed, silently but fiercely, to find the truth, and to make sure nobody survives a betrayal like this.